There could be numerous reasons for someone in Virginia to have their wages being garnished, but do you have any options to stop it? Well, depending on your situation, having your wages garnished could put you in a financial hardship. And for example, if someone makes Virginia's minimum wage of $11 an hour, and now they have their wages being garnished for a $25,000 unpaid debt, that could be something that's putting them into a hardship and now thinking they may need to consider filing a bankruptcy. All of that to say though, that's what we're going to cover in today's video. Welcome to the Ascend Finance YouTube channel, where we cover wage garnishment in Virginia and help folks understand their options to resolve it. With that said, everyone's situation is unique, and so we built a free Virginia wage garnishment calculator to help folks see what their options are to stop it. We want to help you also compare the pros and cons to each option and estimate the cost based on their personalized data. My name is Justin, and I'm one of the analysts here at Ascend. I speak with quite a few folks who are unfortunately facing a garnishment, and so I'd love to help you understand the process and options. In today's video, we're going to cover a few things. First, starting with the options to stop a garnishment. And then I'm going to move on into the Virginia wage garnishment laws, then wage garnishment process in Virginia, then steps to finding out who is garnishing your wages. Then I want to touch on which option you should do. Then I want to help you understand which option may be best for you. Now, before I dive into the different ways to stop a garnishment in Virginia, I wanted to say that if the video ends up being helpful, feel free to leave a like, as it's always encouraging for us to see. Also, if you'd like to see more videos like this covering wage garnishment and options to resolve debt in Virginia, feel free to subscribe, as we're always trying to put out new videos weekly. Now, let's get started. We understand that you may be feeling overwhelmed, and one of the most important things is understanding how to stop it, as it may be debilitating. So we built a Virginia wage garnishment calculator to help you understand either A, how much you may be garnished, or B, if you're currently being garnished, determining whether that's the correct amount. And we also want to help equip you with the different options to stop. So with that said, that kind of helps and segue into the next portion of the video. Options to stop a garnishment. When it comes to stopping a garnishment, there are unfortunately a limited number of options, as at this point, the courts has already issued an order for an unpaid debt. However, there are options to consider, so let's dive into those. First, filing bankruptcy. So one option to stop a garnishment is filing a bankruptcy. There is the liquidation bankruptcy, known as Chapter 7, which can provide immediate relief from a garnishment and potentially any other unsecured debt you may have. Now, in order to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Virginia, you need to pass the means test. For the means test, there are income requirements based on your household size. So I'm going to show on the screen now what the current income limits as of making of this video, and what they're currently at for the Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Virginia. And so you can see that based on the number of people, the income threshold increases. So for a household of one, it's about 69,000, just under 70K. And as you get up to 8 people in your household, you're approaching 164,000 a year. So for more up-to-date figures though, for the means test, you could actually just take our free Chapter 7 calculator, which will also at the same time help you understand the qualification and cost. And so the calculator ideally is there to help you personally see, based on your zip code and based on your personalized data, whether you qualify and what the cost would look like. You don't even need to put an email address in to see your results. The Chapter 7 filing fee in Virginia is $338. But you actually may be entitled to have it waived if you are under the fee poverty limit. So I'm going to put that on the screen as well, so you can see what the fee poverty guidelines are based on household size. Now, if it doesn't make sense to file bankruptcy, or you want to try another option first, you may be able to file an exemption through the court. So what that would look like is reaching out to the local courthouse to see if you may be eligible for any exemption. So for example, that could look like being able to file a head of household exemption, which could limit how much they're able to actually withhold from your paycheck. Now I want to go through the wage garnishment laws now for Virginia. In Virginia, there should be a limit on the amount of earnings that can be withheld from a single paycheck. Depending on the state, it's generally just based on disposable earnings. Now, with that said, I want to put in the description what the wage garnishment laws look like for Virginia. And that way, because it's a little complex for me just to kind of spit out here, and so I want to provide it just in writing into the description, as it'll help gear you towards articles as well that would be more resourceful. Also, you can always just take on the wage garnishment calculator, as that will estimate disposable. That will estimate the wage garnishment based on your income and based on your personalized data. Now that I kind of pointed in the direction of the garnishment laws in Virginia, I want to help you understand this process behind it all. Now, when it comes to a wage garnishment, the actual process of it really depends on the type of debt actually being collected, as there's actually potentially specific procedures for garnishing someone's wages for, child support or spousal support, virtually compared to maybe like credit card debt. So with that all said, though, the process is generally similar across the board for collecting unpaid unsecured debt. So let's kind of get into what the process looks like for reaching at, a wage garnishment for something like that. Now, the first thing they're going to have to do is most likely obtain a judgment against you. And so wage garnishments don't happen overnight, right? And so fortunately, there are checks and balances put in place to protect both the debtor and the creditor from doing anything with ill intent. So if you are facing a garnishment from, let's say, the federal government, maybe for like an unpaid student debt, the process may look a bit different, as they may not need to actually have a court order to withhold your earnings, but nevertheless, let's focus on, regular traditional unsecured debt. So the first step to obtaining a judgment is through a debt collection lawsuit. So the creditor will need to properly serve you for any unpaid unsecured debt. So that's going to probably include credit cards, medical bills, and personal loans, payday loans, of course, and things of that nature. So once you've received the summons, you should see a few things. First, the facts of the case, right? And so you should see a summary of the law, the description of the debt, and the exact amount that you owe. And so most times you should actually have about 30 days to respond, but it should state what that is on the summons. Now, let's say, the creditor has enough documentation provide sufficient proof, right? And so they have enough proof that you owe the debt. The court now may issue a default judgment. So with the judgment, though, the creditor now has the choice to whether they want to pursue further legal action by maybe requesting a wage garnishment order. So that is the next step here in the process, is actually obtaining a wage garnishment order. So now that we've actually touched on what it looks like to obtain a judgment, I want to kind of go through what the next step of it looks like and kind of what it looks like to obtain a wage garnishment order. So as I just alluded to, with the judgment, the creditor is now able to potentially request a wage garnishment order. So here's what that looks like. The first thing is the creditor is going to request a writ of execution from the court. The next thing is there's going to be a garnishment packet served to your employer. Now, once the employer has received the garnishment packet, you may actually start to see your wages being garnished, probably, in the first paycheck you've received 10 days after the service. So once your employer has received the garnishment packet, you may actually start to see your wages being garnished in the first paycheck you receive. That's about 10 days after the date of being served. And so your employer may need to provide you with a copy of the garnishment order. And so you should be able to challenge this order, but you may only have around 10 days to ask for any potential exemptions. Now, sometimes folks are not even aware that they are being garnished, who's garnishing, or what the balance is for, and for many, many reasons, unfortunately. So before I go too much further, I want to help you figure out where to go if you either don't know who's garnished your wages or you're not sure the balance they're garnishing you for. I've actually spoken with more and more folks who have unfortunately been caught off guard by a recent garnishment from their wages. Most times they're first hearing about it from being notified by their employer, or they just noticed a portion of their paycheck was being taken out. And so if you do fall into this category, I want to help you understand a few simple steps that may help you actually answer those questions and get a little bit more understanding. Of course, if you already know who's garnishing your wages and the total balance, feel free to skip to the next part here, more covering your options to resolve it as well that I touched on earlier. But if you don't know who's garnishing your wages or what the balance is, here are some steps to take if you need more information. So one step could be, it's depending on everyone's situation, but one step could be reaching out to payroll and seeing if they have any information on who submitted the garnishment order. Most likely them or someone within your employer has information or the documents that they were served. Now, once you know who is garnishing your wages, you should be able to call them directly to get the information on the balance. So once you have an idea of the law firm that's handling the account, you could potentially reach out to them and get an idea of the balance, when it started, how much they want, if there's any offers to resolve. Or if that doesn't work for any reason, you could potentially reach out to the courthouse and see if they're able to look up your case. If you call the local courthouse, they may have the case information regarding the judgment and the garnishment issued. Of course, there's no promises on any of these, but those could be options to explore. Now, if both of those options don't work, you may be able to check your credit report and see if there's any outstanding debts that it may be in relation to. So if you have a medical bill from 4 years ago that is in collections and you haven't paid on it and your wages are being garnished, and you look in the credit report and you see there's a medical bill in collections, well, It could be that, but those are things to check out. Now, the multiple question here is, which options should you do? Now, with all that to say, ultimately it's up to you. However, I would encourage you to take our wage garnishment calculator, as that'll help you compare your options, the cost, the pros and cons to handling a potential garnishment. As I do understand that it can be overwhelming, you're always welcome to give us a call or text at 833-272-3631, and we'd be happy to chat through your situation. I do hope that this video was helpful, but if you do have any questions at all, feel free to leave a comment down below, as I am sure there are others with a similar question. We will do our best to get back to you as soon as possible. However, thanks so much for watching, and I'm always here if you have any questions.